During the pandemic, Hong Kong experienced significant economic impacts. Firstly, there are economic contraction. The pandemic caused a significant decline in Hong Kong's economy. According to the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, the economy contracted by 6.1% in 2020, marking the second consecutive year of annual contraction and the most severe one on record. The steep fall in economic activities was driven mainly by a sharp reduction in domestic demand. There is a serious unemployment issue. Many businesses, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, struggle to stay afloat. As a result, there were substantial job losses and an increase in unemployment rates. The retail, tourism, and hospitality sectors were hit the hardest.
To move on, we should understand the reason for the disparity between the rich and the poor in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in. The cost of living in Hong Kong is high due to different reasons, such as the high demand for housing. With a limited amount of land available, the demand for housing far exceeds the supply. This has resulted in extremely high rent and property prices, making it difficult for people to afford suitable ones, especially for the poor. They can just afford some low-cost housing with low living quality such as subdivided flats, although living costs are high. Income inequality leads to a larger gap between the rich and the poor. Although the guards will have jobs, the legal minimum wage is too low, preventing them from getting out of poverty. The wage cannot keep up with inflation. Therefore, the guards would become working poor and may face different financial problems themselves.
Next, let's look at some information about our interview.
Did the pandemic affect your life or income?
Yes, I think it affected a lot. Take me as an example. I'm a university student, and sometimes I will work for part-time. But like during the pandemic, sometimes I'm not allowed to go to my students' home and help them to teach them. So that I think that will hugely affect my income.
So during the or after the pandemic, has your financial spending been reduced or restricted?
After the pandemic, I think not really. I think after the pandemic, my income has become more and more flexible, and it's more than before, during the pandemic, because what I just said before, like during the pandemic, there are a lot of restrictions. But after the pandemic, I can visit all my students' house, and that's why I can charge higher prices. So that's why I think after the pandemic, my income has become more stabler than before.
Do you think the pandemic has affected the disparity between the rich and the poor?
Yes, I think so, because during the pandemic, like there's an equal chance for either the rich or the poor to get infected by the coronavirus. However, the outcome might be different. Like for the rich, because they have enough money to pay for the fee, like pay for the medical services fee, and so that they can purchase some good and like adequate medicine, so that there's a higher possibility for them to recover fast. Like if they get coronavirus, they get infected by coronavirus, and they have better treatments, and they will recover fast. But for the poor, for the poverty, like since they don't have a lot of money, they are only like sometimes they don't even have enough money to get treated better or to get better medical services or treatments. So for the poverty, it might take like long time for them to recover. You can see that there, like in hospital, there are a lot of beds, and like the elderly are lying on the beds, and you can see that some of them even died. I think the most important reason is that their income is not high enough. Like they can't get good special treatment. So that's why I think the disparity is quite obvious.
Okay. Do you think there is any economic improvement after the pandemic?
Well, of course, because during the pandemic, many shops are closed. So, for example, opening hours reduced during the pandemic because, like, literally the government doesn't want people to go outside. So some shops are forcefully shut down, and you can see that there are a lot of the unemployment rate increases a lot during the pandemic.
Okay, so who do you think can improve the problem, or what are the ways to improve the situation?
Well, I think that right now the situation has been improved a lot because I think everything is resumed normal. But if you mean that like during the past, like how to improve faster, well, I think that the government can cater for both economy and like for the pandemic.
According to a report by Oxfam Hong Kong, in the first quarter of 2022, the incomes of the poorest decile fell by more than 20% compared to their income before the COVID outbreak. On the contrary, the median monthly incomes of households in the 7th to the richest decile increased. While a high-income individual less affected by the pandemic, Let's hear the voice of a middle-class individual who runs IT company in Hong Kong.
Basically, for the first few months, we many tasks are stopped. Okay, some client will stop the advertisement or stop some plan. Okay, for doing their promotion. Okay, on the internet. Okay, so at that moment, have some effect. After 6 months, I said my company and also me. Okay, so using Zoom. Okay, to deal with the client and also with different types of meeting. So make use of network or telecommunication tools, or I said Zoom or Microsoft Team, then can help us, okay, to be more, we call, digitalized. Okay, so totally affect around maybe 6 months. Things of course, seeing some of the industry, especially for travel, okay, travel tourism, okay, and also retail. You close of many restaurant shops and other, mainly for retail. People cannot go out to work. Not everyone or each company they can using the mode using we call work from home. They cannot work from home. So you know that they need logistic delivery the goods, okay, to and from their customer. The main role must be our government. Okay, since you know the government can enact. Okay, that means can for the discount or some 減辣. I said it is reduce some rules based on setting higher 印花税 tax rate with higher tax rate.
We also interview grassroots people. We interview a 67 years old elder. He thought that his life and his income were greatly affected during the pandemic. Because he was old and he had to take care of his wife at home, so he could not go out for a long time of work. So he did not have a stable job and income. During the pandemic, his company no longer hire part-time jobs, so he only can earn the money by scavenging for cardboard and plastic bottles to maintain his basic life. During the pandemic, his life was even worse than before, because at the beginning of the pandemic, he and his wife were infected with COVID-19 at the same time, and they did not have a stable income, and at that time, the government did not have a perfect plan to help them, resulting in he only can use his saving to buy medicines for treatment, and only can rely on the old age allowance given by the government to make a living. At the end of the pandemic, the government also had many plans to help them, and some social worker came to have a free vaccine for them and help them. He believes that the pandemic has affected the gap between the rich and the poor, because he said that his friends around him are not particularly rich, all of them have no income during the pandemic, and need to take their own saving to maintain their basic life, resulting in a more difficult life, and he believes that the pandemic will not affect the rich at all. It will not affect their lives and their property. He believes that the government can improve this problem, because the government is the institution with the most money and resources, so they can send their money or provide the financial support so that they can have the stable money to maintain basic life every month.
The solutions to the economic inequality problem after the pandemic can be divided into short-term and long-term, and the Hong Kong government should play the leading role in solving this problem. To tackle the problem immediately, the government can provide financial aid. Based on what has been found in the interview, the lower class suffered more than the middle class during the COVID-19. Firstly, to relieve the suffering of the lower class, the government can provide cash handouts to low-income individuals and families, allowing them to afford necessities. Secondly, the government can also provide subsidies for the impacted businesses. The subsidies can help them facilitate economic recovery after the effects of the pandemic. Low-income individuals are employed mainly by these businesses, and the subsidies can help the companies create jobs. This allows the individuals to secure the jobs and have stable incomes. The government can also relieve taxes in the short term, such as the stamp duty. The stamp duty relief benefits the low-income families as housing prices become more affordable. Low-income families are deterred from the high transaction costs of purchasing houses. The relief of stamp duty increases their will to buy houses and hence improving their living standards. In the long run, the government should promote education for low-income and unemployed individuals, and this can increase their job opportunities. The government can also do more on labor protection. For instance, increase the minimum wage standard. This allows low-income individuals to slowly gain more money and reduce the income gap with the rich.
To sum up, we understand the reason for the disparity between the rich and the poor. Also, we understand what income inequality is, as well as how people lived during the pandemic and after the pandemic. Besides, we see some solution in the short term and long term to deal with economic inequality. It is to be hoped that the gap will narrow in the near future and people will have access to good living conditions. Thank you for your listening.